Hi everyone, my name is Chris Bergrocki and I'm the camera systems specialist here at Netflix. We thought it might be fun to give a little peek behind the curtain in our camera lab and talk about the work we do here at Netflix in evaluating different cameras and capture technologies in general. Let's start at the very beginning and answer that age-old question, why does Netflix have an approved camera list at all? That's a great question. I'm going to try and boil things down to the core motivation for why we have an approved camera list. One of the biggest priorities for us as a studio is helping our filmmakers do their very best work. We want our filmmakers to not just feel enabled, but also encouraged to use the latest and greatest capture technologies out there to tell their stories. Okay, now we get into the really fun stuff. How does Netflix determine what gets approved and what doesn't get approved? The most common misconception is that the only requirement we have for cameras on our approved list is 4K capture. Now, while capturing at a higher resolution is certainly important to image quality, we know it's not everything. That's why resolution is just one of the many attributes we look at when evaluating a camera system. Other criteria that is just as important to image quality would be dynamic range, color reproduction, noise performance, sensor readout speed, compression, chroma subsampling, bit depth, and so on and so on. Actually, if you look behind me right now, you'll see some of the specialized high-precision testing equipment we use to measure image performance. So for example, that illuminated chart just behind me is referred to as an OECF chart, or optoelectronic conversion function chart. And that allows us to accurately measure the dynamic range of an imaging system. Now it's important to point out that there are a variety of ways to measure and define parameters such as dynamic range, MTF performance, color precision, and we do our best to remain as objective as possible by performing a multitude of tests and not just relying on one singular solution. We also make a point to stay in communication with the manufacturer to ensure that we're operating the camera system and testing it in the best way possible to achieve the greatest results. And as informative as these controlled tests can be, they don't always tell the whole story. So that's why we remain in constant communication with the filmmakers on our productions, as well as the filmmaking community at large, to understand what features are important to them. We're not putting together these specifications in a vacuum behind closed doors. All of these requirements are built on years of experience and industry feedback that are ultimately meant to push the industry forward. Surprisingly, a lot of the feedback we receive doesn't actually pertain to image quality. That's why during our camera evaluations, we also look at things like stability and reliability of the system. Does it have proper thermal management? Is it going to overheat on a professional film set? Are we going to have to deal with image corruption or lost data all the time? How well supported is the recorded file format in post software? Is there proper color management and even simple things like unique file naming or embedded metadata such as lens info or timecode? All of these aspects and many others factor into whether a camera is approved or not. Obviously, because we hold such high standards, it's difficult for specialized systems such as a drone, a fixed rig, pan-tilt zoom camera, an action camera, and even high-speed cameras to meet our specifications. This is generally due to a sheer battle against physics. In designing these specialty cameras, the manufacturer has to make certain concessions. That might mean using a smaller sensor, balancing between the merits of a 2/3 inch broadcast style sensor versus a Super 35 or a full frame sensor, or lowering the power requirements of the system overall. Maybe having a smaller, lighter body is really important, and that means you have less physical space for internal boards to actually do the image processing at a high level, or simply needing an extremely fast integration period allowing for faster frame rates. It's always a struggle trying to balance the practicality of a camera's intended use case versus image quality. Now, despite some of these shortcomings, these specialty cameras offer a lot of features our approved cameras don't. And we realize the importance of being able to use them in certain situations when they're absolutely necessary to achieve creative intent. That's why on all of our original productions, we provide for an allotment of non-approved camera usage if required. This means we're flexible if a production needs to use a non-approved camera in order to create their vision. Imagine you're trying to capture the wing flutter of a hummingbird at 1,000 frames per second. Or perhaps you need to mount a camera to a car crashing into a wall. These are shots that you just can't achieve without the use of a specialized system. And we get that. but we do want to make sure we're still using the highest quality option available. So that means even when you're shooting with a non-approved camera, we want you to follow some basic rules like shooting at the highest resolution, capturing at the highest data rate, and recording in a wide color gamut and log curve when and where it makes sense. Following these basic guidelines can help maintain optimum quality even when not using an approved camera. And remember, at the end of the day, everything we push for is an effort to help our filmmakers make their best possible work, what we call filmmaker joy. By extension, we hope that you too will experience viewer joy as Netflix subscribers, work that everyone can enjoy for decades to come. Thank you for joining me, and if you'd like to learn more, don't hesitate to reach out or visit us at the Netflix Partner Help Center.